Virgo, the connection the universe has arranged for this weekend, a chance that won't come again. Have you ever been faced with something good and felt like backing away? Not because it was wrong, because it was too good to be true. If this has ever happened to you, maybe you're a Virgo, or perhaps more precisely, maybe you learned at some point in your life that trusting too quickly is the same as being careless. No one is born suspicious, we learn it, and Virgos learn early on that feeling too much, too quickly, without checking first, is like signing a contract without reading the fine print. So they create a system, a silent, almost invisible system that observes before feeling, that analyzes before surrendering, that waits for proof before taking the step. The problem is that this system doesn't know how to differentiate between risk and opportunity. It treats both the same way, as something to be postponed until things become clearer. And so, without realizing it, Virgo spends their life waiting for clarity in an area of existence that was never meant to be clear. Connection isn't a spreadsheet. There's no formula that guarantees results before you experience the question. This weekend carries a specific kind of energy. It's not about luck. It's about an encounter, of a person, of a conversation, of an opportunity, of a reunion that will knock exactly on the door that Virgo reinforces most. The door of doubt disguised as caution. And here's the first discomfort I need to show you before continuing. You don't hesitate because you don't feel. You hesitate because you feel too much, and that scares you more than any rejection. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone, really liked them, and the first thing you did was look for the reason why it wasn't going to work out? It's not malice, it's not coldness, it's a reflex so well trained that it became a personality trait. And the worst part, you call that being realistic, but a realist isn't someone who predicts the worst. A realist is someone who sees what's actually happening, and sometimes what's happening is simply good, without any hidden meaning. This pattern has a name, although no one usually says it out loud. Anticipatory protection. Virgo anticipates pain before it exists, hoping never to have to feel it unexpectedly. However, in doing so, Virgo also anticipates and pushes away what didn't even have a chance to hurt yet. What if, just this weekend, didn't this automatic mechanism have the final say? What if, this time, the question Virgo always asks, what if it goes wrong, gave way to a question that almost never comes up? What if this is exactly what I was expecting, only without warning? Because that's what bothers them most deeply. Virgo doesn't fear the unknown. They fear the unknown that already seems too familiar, that already moves too quickly, because it escapes the control that sustains their sense of security. And control, for Virgo, has never been about dominating the other. It has always been about not losing themselves. But today, I need to ask you something you may never have asked yourself this directly without beating around the bush. How many good connections have you let slip away, just because they asked for faith before asking for proof? And what did that really cost you over the years? Not in breakups, but in beginnings that never even happened. In people you didn't even get to know properly because you decided before feeling anything that you already knew how it would end. I'm not going to answer that now. I just want that question to remain open, echoing, because it is precisely within it that the answer to what is about to happen to you resides this very weekend. How many times has this question come up in your life and you simply moved on without stopping to listen to what it was trying to show you? It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. Isn't about predicting the future or guaranteeing that nothing will go wrong. It's about something Virgo understands almost instinctively, but rarely practices on themselves. True balance isn't the absence of risk, it's presence within risk. The book addresses exactly this point, how to use your ability to observe without letting it become a prison, how to keep your feet on the ground without tying your own hands before even trying. I know that right now, as you listen to this, that question is still nagging at you, still processing how many connections you missed. This discomfort you feel now isn't bad. It's the clearest sign that something inside you already knows it needs to change its approach. And it's precisely because you're still caught up in this feeling, still raw, that it makes sense to act now, not later, when Virgo's rational mind has already found 10 reasons to postpone it again. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. Tell me in the comments, when was the last time you backed away from something good just because you weren't sure? Write it down without filter. Let's take it easy because this can't be solved with a catchy phrase. Let's understand it from the inside. From childhood, Virgo learns to notice details that others ignore. A different tone of voice, a silence a second longer, a small change in the way someone looks. This becomes a talent. It also becomes vigilance. And the Virgo body, without asking permission, transforms this talent into a kind of internal radar that never turns off. The problem is that no radar can rest on its own. It keeps running even when there's no danger in sight, simply because it's been trained to never be caught off guard again. And that's where the first mistake lies. Virgo confuses being constantly alert with being safe. They're not the same thing. True security allows for rest. What Virgo experiences most of the time is vigilance disguised as stability. There's a list. No one wrote it down on paper, but it exists, stored somewhere in the mind, silently updated with each disappointment. Criteria a person must meet before deserving real closeness. Consistency, predictability, proof of intent, sufficient observation time. All of this seems like prudence, and in part it is. But in another part, it's a sophisticated way of never having to truly open up, because there will always be an item missing from the list. There will always be a detail yet to be confirmed. And who wrote this list? No one from outside. It was the Virgin herself at some distant point, probably after a disappointment that hurt more than it should have, and she made a silent promise, never again to be caught off guard. But promises made in pain tend to be too rigid for real life, which doesn't follow any lists. Notice also how Virgo demonstrates affection. Rarely with direct words, almost always with action, solving a problem for someone, remembering a small detail, appearing with the solution even before being asked. This is beautiful, genuinely beautiful. But it is also often a detour, because it's easier to help than to say, "I like you," and that puts me at risk. Caring becomes, unintentionally, a safe way to love without running the risk of loving aloud. And then there's the postponement. This is perhaps the most silent of all mechanisms. It's not the right time yet, Virgo repeats, almost like a mantra. Life needs organizing. Emotional clarity is lacking. A stronger sign is needed. But while Virgo revises and revises and revises, like someone reading the same paragraph 10 times, finding an error that perhaps doesn't even exist, life goes on without asking permission. And sometimes the person on the other side, tired of waiting for a perfect version of courage that may never come, simply continues on their way. How many connections have died from waiting, not from rejection? That's a question that hurts more than any "it didn't work out," because at least an "it didn't work out" has an answer. A connection that dies from delay doesn't even get a final chapter. It just fades away little by little, while Virgo is still revising its own paragraph. If you've recognized this pattern now, perhaps it's time to stop revisiting the same paragraph of your life. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose has a section dedicated precisely to this. How to transform Virgo's compulsive waiting into conscious waiting, which knows when the right moment has arrived and is only being ignored out of habit. It's not about acting without thinking. It's about stopping confusing caution with escape. The last copies are running out, and this type of content tends to disappear without warning. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. Now pay attention to this, because this part is usually uncomfortable to admit. Notice the criticisms Virgo makes of the people who affect them the most. That detail that bothers them too much, that flaw that seems small to anyone else, but, for Virgo, becomes reason enough to retreat. Often, it's not the other person who is wrong. It's Virgo themselves pressing an emergency button even before the alarm goes off, just because feeling too much intensity is frightening when you've spent your life controlling the intensity of your own emotions. The criticism, in this case, isn't about the other person. It's about protection. Finding the flaw before becoming attached is a way to maintain a safe enough distance to never suffer too much if things don't work out. However, by doing this, Virgo also prevents anything from going far enough to truly be worthwhile. And there's another role that Virgo carries almost unconsciously, the role of being the reliable, mature person who always solves problems, always listens, always holds everything together. It's wonderful to be that person. But almost never does anyone ask who takes care of the caregiver. Virgo gets so used to supporting others that they forget to let others know when they also need comfort. And then comes the silent loneliness of someone who is indispensable, but is never sought out to confide in. If you're the kind of person who supports everyone and is never asked how they are doing, listen to this. Taking care of yourself isn't selfishness, it's maintenance. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose offers a practical way for Virgos to stop outsourcing their own care while taking care of the whole world, learning to ask for support without feeling weak for it. This content may be taken down at any time, and the last copies are running out fast. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. And this is exactly where the energy of this weekend comes in, because what's approaching you doesn't ask for analysis, it asks for presence. It could be a conversation that reopens something that seemed closed. It could be someone new crossing your path at a seemingly banal moment. It could be a simple invitation that carries more weight than it appears at first glance. And your first impulse, as always, will be to look for the reason why this shouldn't work out. But this time, pay attention. You might be standing right in front of the right door and still insist on looking for the key in the wrong pocket. Not because the door is hidden, but because you're so trained to distrust what's good that you no longer recognize when something simply is. No tricks, no fine print. What changes this weekend if you stop looking for proof before you feel it? Think about how many times the body knew before the mind. That good tightness in the chest, that urge to smile for no apparent reason, that feeling of already knowing someone even though it's the first conversation. Virgos tend to ignore these signs because they don't come with a logical explanation. And anything without a logical explanation sounds, to this trained mind, like an uncalculated risk. But not everything that is real needs to be explainable before it's experienced. Some things can only be explained later, looking back, when they've already worked out. This is the hidden invitation within the energy of this weekend. Not to abandon discernment, which is one of Virgo's greatest talents, but to stop using it as a weapon against oneself. Discernment serves to choose wisely. It doesn't serve to prevent any choice from happening. If that weekend energy is already affecting you, don't let it pass you by while you're still calculating the risks. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign towards a life of purpose teaches precisely how Virgo can keep their feet on the ground without freezing up in the face of what is good, finding a balance that doesn't depend on eliminating all uncertainty before acting. This material may be taken down without prior notice, and the last copies are running out as you listen to this. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. Let's wrap this up calmly, because you've already understood enough to feel the difference between fear and genuine care. Virgos don't need to stop analyzing. That would be like asking someone to stop breathing the way they've always breathed. The invitation is different. Analyze after feeling, not instead of feeling. Let the body register first. Let the emotion arrive fully, and only then use that sharp mind to understand what to do with it, not to prevent it from existing. There's a quiet beauty in those who notice the details that no one else sees, in those who remember birthdays, medicine, important dates, the right way to make someone feel cared for. That's the genius of Virgo, and it's never been the problem. The problem has always been using that genius only on others and never turning that same careful attention inward to ask, and me, how do I feel when no one is asking me to solve anything? This weekend doesn't promise a perfect ending without risk, without the possibility of pain. Nothing in life promises that, and that's precisely where the trapped Virgo always falls into lies, expecting a guarantee that existence has never offered anyone. The invitation is simpler and at the same time more courageous than any guarantee. It's about choosing even without knowing the ending. It's about taking the first step, knowing it might hurt, but choosing to take it anyway. Because the alternative, never taking the step, hurts in a quieter and longer way. Perhaps the true harmony that Virgo constantly seeks isn't about avoiding every possible mistake. Perhaps it's about trusting that even when you err, you remain capable of reorganizing yourself, learning, and moving forward. This trust, more than any accurate prediction, is true balance. It's not the absence of doubt, it's the ability to act even with doubt present. So if this weekend brings you an unexpected conversation, a reunion, an invitation that seems small but isn't, perhaps the question is no longer, is this safe? Perhaps the question for the first time can simply be, what if I allow it? Because in the end, the chance that never comes again was never about the other person. It was always about you allowing something good to happen without needing to prove in advance that you deserve to happen. There's a difference between waiting for the perfect moment and simply being afraid to begin, disguised as patience. Virgo confuses the two with astonishing ease because both seem from the outside extremely reasonable. Both sound mature, both seem wise, but only one is born from calmness and the other is born from fear disguised as common sense. The difference appears in a simple detail. The perfect moment, when you wait for it with true calm, doesn't consume you from within while you wait. Fear disguised as patience, however, steals sleep, revisits the same scene 1,000 times, and never truly gets anywhere. Perhaps it's worth noting just this once, which of the two you're in. If waiting is bringing peace, maybe it really isn't the right time yet, and that's okay. But if waiting is bringing fatigue, excessive review, that mental loop that keeps you from sleeping properly, then maybe what you're calling patience is actually a polite way of escaping. There's a simple image that might help you carry this with you after this video ends. Imagine a scale that doesn't seek balance by stopping halfway, motionless, afraid of tipping to either side. A true scale balances itself in motion. It oscillates, feels the weight on each side, adjusts, corrects, and readjusts. Virgo's balance has never been about staying still in the center. It's always been about having the courage to oscillate and trusting that, in the end, the body knows how to return to the center on its own. Perhaps this is the quietest lesson this weekend carries. It's not about getting it right the first time. It's about allowing movement, knowing that it will bring you back to balance whenever necessary, and that more than any prediction is the kind of confidence no one can take away from you once you learn to truly feel it. What if, deep down, The only thing missing wasn't more information, more proof, more time for observation, but simply permission. Permission to feel without apologizing for feeling quickly. Permission to like someone without needing to rationally justify every reason. Permission to experience uncertainty as a natural part of anything that truly matters, and not as a flaw to be eliminated before it even begins. You possess a rare ability to perceive what others miss. Use that ability just once to realize this. Perhaps the connection the universe has prepared for you this weekend is already there, waiting not for another test, but for a simple yes. And perhaps this time, you'll be the one to decide to say yes before your mind finds yet another reason to postpone it.